Chapter 4 The Death of Togan. Death will always be part of life. It is as natural as the seasons. The hot summer will slowly glide into fall, and that in turn into winter, when the trees stand barren and the cold snow covers the mountains. But there are those who seem cursed to live in times when death comes out of season, when the winter of a man's life may leap upon him in the midst of summer greenness. How young Togan was when he died, I am not sure. I had then used so small a part of my life that I thought him old. I think he must have been in his mid-30s, the noon of his life. As I have mentioned, he was not tall, yet his body was big. It was his legs that were unusually short. He was strong and liked showing off that strength. This was his only vanity, but it explained his passion for wrestling, which was to cost him his life. Near the Hoko Temple, located on the narrow street called Warehouse Road, wrestling matches were sometimes held. These were not the official ones that lords and samurai attended. Here the spectators were the riffraff of Kafuchu, and the wrestlers themselves were also often poor at their sport. There would be betting on the results. Sometimes a fight would break out among the rabble watching them. News had spread that a young man from beyond the mountains had proven such an adept wrestler that he had thrown some of the best in the province. This had tempted Togan to visit a part of the town he otherwise did not frequent. In the old street of the dyers, which led to the warehouse road, lived some of the poorest and most miserable people in Kafuchu. When the dyers had moved, the wretches had made their home in the ramshackle sheds they left behind. Among a group of these beggars, I spied one who looked like an old soldier that had plagued me when I was taken to Kafuchu. I debated whether I should say anything to Togan, but decided not to, for I was not certain that it was he. Still, the presence made me uneasy, for it was obvious they had all had too much to drink. As we approached the place where the wrestling match was to be held, I felt a sense of danger that made me want to turn back. The wrestler proved a disappointment. He was strong but not skillful. He won the first two matches, but his opponents were not true wrestlers, merely young men who wanted to test their strength. In the third match, the challenger was a wrestler, although not a champion in anywhere but his own village. He threw the young man from beyond the mountains as if he were a sack of rice. Togan was annoyed, and he commented in the most derogatory fashion not only upon the match, but also the place where it was held. I was aware that some people near us were taking exception to his opinions. I glanced around to see if I could find any of Lord Akima's servants in the crowd, but saw none that I knew. "If this place is not to your liking, then why did you come?" a voice jeered at us. Togan did not reply, but motioned that we should leave. The group of drunkards from Old Dyer Street barred the way, and foremost among them stood the soldier. "Please allow us to pass," Togan bowed politely, as he asked the group. "Shouldn't we make them pay a toll?" the leader of the party demanded, and I felt certain he was the very same man who made me bow toward the head of the bandits. He was standing with his hands on his hips, right in front of us, making obvious that he was not going to move. A roar of approval greeted his suggestion. "We are poor people," Togan muttered. "He says he is too poor," the drunk shouted to his audience. Then as he poked Togan in the stomach, he said, "I say he's fat-bellied." "Please keep your hands to yourself." Togan's voice was low and menacing. I knew then that he was angry. He says that he does not want me to touch him." The man turned towards his companions. "He says he's ticklish." Then suddenly his right fist shot out and hit the unsuspecting Togan in the middle of the stomach. Togan was taken completely unaware. He doubled up in pain, which made our tormentor laugh. "That's better. Now down on your knees. You too, boy," he ordered. I looked at Togan, waiting to see what he would do. Suddenly I recalled what a soldier had said of this man. "He is a wasp in autumn. He stings without reason." Togan had straightened up, and though the blow had knocked the breath out of him, he did not look like a man who was about to fall on his knees. "Let us pass," Togan commanded. "I said on your knees, fool." The old soldier would not let us go. "You too, boy," he shouted as he swatted me across the face with his open hand. The blow was unexpected and so hard that I fell to the ground. As I rose slowly, I felt my cheeks smarting. Some of the people laughed, others jeered. They had formed a ring around us. This was better sport to them than the wrestling match had been. "Leave the boy alone," Togan shouted as he charged, and using his head as a battering ram, he sent the old man sprawling on the ground. But he was up in a moment, and drawing a dagger from his sash, he attacked Togan. I saw the blade glitter twice in the sun. The second time it was stained with blood, and Togan had fallen to the ground. A gasp was heard from the crowd, as if they had all drawn their breath at the same time. I threw myself down beside Togan. Blood was flowing from two deep wounds in his chest. I put my hands on them, as if that would stop the blood, but it oozed out between my fingers. "That will teach him better manners." Togan's murderer looked triumphantly around him. Some of the crowd was leaving. The sight of blood had sobered them. "What is happening here?" a voice demanded. At the sound of it, most of the witnesses to the deed found they had business elsewhere and disappeared. "He attacked me, my lord." The soldier, who was now sober, bowed deeply and respectfully. "That is not true," I shouted angrily as I jumped to my feet. It was only then that I realized the newcomer was Lord Akiyama, accompanied by a group of servants and retainers. "Togan was your cook," I said, bowing at the same time. Lord Akiyama wrinkled his brow and tried to recall who Togan was. To help him, I explained that he cooked for the servants. One of the men who had come with Lord Akiyama was kneeling beside Togan. I noticed that he was a samurai for some reason that pleased me. He rose and whispered something to his master. "How dare you kill one of my servants?" Lord Akiyama turned on the soldier angrily. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I used to serve Yamamoto Kansuke. I come from Ise." The soldier accompanied this information with a sly smile. Then, as he became aware he still held the bloody dagger in his hand, he wiped it and put it away. "Unfortunately for you, Lord Kansuke is dead and cannot vouch for the truth of what you said." Lord Akiyama's voice was like silk. Not only do you not come only from Ise, but claim birth in Koga." Togan's murderer looked around for his friends, but all of them had vanished. He turned pale as he tasted the bitter savor of fear, and then dropped to his knees and declared, "I have served Lord Takeda well." No doubt, Lord Akiyama glanced at me as he asked, "How did this happen, boy?" We had come to see the wrestling match. Togan had done no harm to him or anyone when he, with a nod to the man I indicated, would not let us leave. He commanded us to get on our knees, and he hit Togan and me too, and then my voice broke, and I felt some shame that tears were forming in my eyes. Then he killed Togan with his knife, even though Togan didn't have any weapon but his fist. An oversight on his part if he wanted to frequent places like this. Lord Akiyama looked at the soldier who was still bowing in front of him. "I have always reserved my sword for those as brave as myself, or at least as honest. I would not tarnish it by doing Kai the service of removing the house of lies you carry on your shoulders. I do not believe you ever served Kansuke or were ever one of his spies. A proper ninja is not so foolish as to engage in brawls like this." It is well known that Lord Akiyama did not respect those samurai who were called ninjas and were spies and sometimes assassins. The distaste was shared by many of the lords and samurai, but not by the ruler of Kai, Lord Takeda Shingen. It was well known that the Ise country, and especially the Koga district, was famous for producing these soldiers who were always dressed in black, no doubt to honor their accomplice Night or their master Death. Suddenly one of the men accompanying Lord Akiyama stepped forward. "I know the man, my lord," he said with disdain. "It is true that he served Lord Kansuke. He was his servant but ran away, taking some of the master's money with him. This he forgot to mention. An oversight caused by modesty, no doubt." Lord Akiyama made motion with his hand, a signal for his retainers to remove the thief. Knowing only too well what fate awaited him, Lord Togan's murderer threw himself on the ground, knocking his head so hard upon the earth that a rough edge of a pebble broke the skin at his forehead. "I am innocent of that charge," he screamed, holding his hands up in despair, begging for the succor that none will give him. "No doubt." Lord Akiyama's hand was pointing towards Togan, whose face had already taken on the pallor of death. "But you are guilty of this." Two men had grabbed the prisoner by his arms. At the same time, one took the precaution of removing the dagger from his sash. As he was hauled upright, he caught the sight of me, and a sudden glimmer of recognition showed on his face. "I should have killed you when we were in the mountains," he screamed as he was dragged away, "but you will make food for crows yet." "And who are you, the cook's helper?" Lord Akiyama asked. I did not answer immediately because I was watching the men who were carrying Togan. "Boy," this time the tone was one of command. "Did you not hear me?" "Yes, I was his helper," I mumbled, and then a little louder I added, "He was my friend." Lord Akiyama smiled. "And what did the scoundrel mean when he said he should have killed you?" I looked at him in surprise, for I still had not realized fully that he did not remember me. "I traveled with the rice, my lord," I replied, a little confused. "He was one of the men that led the horses." "Led horses? What horses?" Lord Akiyama wrinkled his brow in an effort to understand. Then suddenly he burst out laughing. "You're the little samurai with the bamboo sword." I nodded in agreement, and then, gathering all my courage, I said, "And you promised that I should help take care of your horses." "Did I?" His features became thoughtful, but soon a smile burst forth. "Taro, yes. That is what I called you. I remember it all now." Lord Akiyama turned to his companions, a samurai dressed almost as splendidly as he was, and they related the story of our meeting. When he had finished, he spoke to me again. "Taro," he said, "I always keep my word, but you were a little too small then, or my horses were too big." "I know, my lord," I gasped, "but what about now? I have grown since then. Now that Togan was dead, I wanted more than ever to escape the kitchen." "We shall see." Then Lord Akiyama noticed the despair painted on my face. He added good-naturedly as he turned to leave, "True, you have grown. Children make a habit of doing that. I think you should be the right size now." For a moment I felt like shouting for joy, as though I had already regained my name and birthright instead of the mere promise of becoming a stable boy. Then my eyes caught sight of the pools of blood that the dry earth had not yet totally absorbed, and my new-found happiness turned to misery. I went to the temple, and there I washed my hands and fell on my knees, and I prayed for Togan's soul.